morning, everyone. I think I'm live. So I just want to take a little bit of time here to show you some things that can begin to open up the neck and the shoulders. And then we'll also do a little bit for the upper back, the spine, the low back, and then getting a little bit into the hips as well. So if you are watching or joining in, welcome. Good morning. For those of you who maybe are watching and don't know who I am, my name is Kara, and I own a yoga business, a holistic wellness business, and so I just want to provide a few things for you this morning that you could do seated at your desk. So this is a question I get a lot, even before we kind of had to move into this online platform. I would always get the question, what can I do if I'm sitting all day to kind of relieve some of that pressure? So relieving some of that tension in the low back or in the shoulders, the neck, all of those areas that tend to get a little more compacted as we sit through the day. And so this live stream is my intention to share some of those things with you this morning. So take a moment, even if you're seated, just to sit up a little bit taller than maybe you would. This is the first step. So if you're sitting, you'll want to just sit up a little bit taller here. You could even play with scooting the weight a little more forward on the edge of the chair. So I'm in a kitchen chair just to demonstrate, but if you have a roll desk chair, something of that sort, you could play with shifting the weight a little more forward instead of sitting all the way against the back here. And giving the spine some nice length. And then the first thing I want to show you is just to start to open up through the neck. So you can bring the left hand to the side of the head and then just start to let the left ear drop toward the shoulder. So as you do this, you want to make sure that the rest of the shoulders aren't starting to reach up toward the ears. You want to keep some nice length here through the neck. And there's really no right or wrong to the length amount of time that you hold this, so just a few breaths. And then if you wanted to increase this stretch through the side of your neck, you could take the arm out to your side. You could even drop it a little bit behind you here. And then bring the head up, release the hand, and then switch. So do the other side. Start to let the ear drop toward the shoulder. Again, reminding yourself to, to keep the shoulders down, away from the ears. And there's not a big press here as you open up through the neck. It's just a little bit of opening. And again, if you wanted more, you could take the hand out to the side, or you could let it rest behind you if it's on a chair, or even just resting on your low back is a great option as well. That feels a little too intense for me this morning. So again, you'll just take some deep breath here. This is just a great way to start to open up through the neck, through the shoulders. And then once you feel complete, you can bring the head back to center. And a different variation of that is to turn and look over the shoulder. So this may already feel like a deep enough stretch through the side of your neck. If you would want a little more, you could start to drop the ear back toward the shoulders. You can see in my body, I have a lot of tightness here this morning on the right side of my neck. So you can see this kind of starting to open up. And then you could stay here for a few breaths. Again, if you wanted more, you could take the arm out to the side or let it rest behind you on the chair or even in the low back area, which feels way too intense for me this morning. Make sure you're breathing as you explore this movement. I like to stay here maybe 3 or 4 breaths. You could even play with some gentle movement here. Maybe imagining that you're trying to draw a line with your chin or nose, finding those sticky areas in the neck. And then when you're ready, you're going to bring the head up and back to center. And then over to the second side, so turning the gaze over the shoulder. Again, you could stay here, or you could drop the ear back. Other variations are taking the hand out to the side or behind you, or maybe just letting it rest in your lap. Again, it's fine to take some movement here as you start to open through the shoulder, through the neck. And make sure you're breathing. So as we start to open up through the neck, there can be a tendency, if there's a lot of tightness in the body, to want to hold the breath. So I just invite you to keep that flowing as you do this. And let your jaw relax. The jaw, the teeth, always try to help. Let that go. And then when you feel complete, you can bring the head back up and center. And I always like to roll out my shoulders after that. So I'm a side sleeper, and I tend to get a lot of tension through my neck and shoulders. And then when stress gets heightened, this is where I like to hold the weight of the world here. So these gentle exercises are a great way, especially in the morning, to just start to release all of that. So the next thing I want to show you is interlacing the hands behind your head. And then from here, you're just going to start to draw the elbows forward, and then gently let the chin start to tuck toward the chest. So you're not actively pushing the head down. There's no sense of pushing down toward the floor. I'm just letting the weight of my arms kind of start to guide the neck downward. Stretching all the way behind the neck, through the shoulder blades. There's a lot of tension in the spine. You could feel this all the way to the low back. Do your best to keep the spine long here. Again, a few breaths here. There's really not a right or wrong to how long you hold gentle movements. It's just whatever feels best in your body. And then you can bring yourself back up, release the arms, and again, maybe roll out the shoulders. This is just a nice way to neutralize when things feel sticky or if there's a lot of tightness. The next one I want to show you is kind of a counter stretch to that. So we've done a lot for the back of the neck. So this next movement or stretch will actually start to open up through the front of the throat and then a little bit into the collarbone, chest area as well. So you're going to bring one hand to the chest, to the collarbone area, and then the other hand is going to go on top. So you're not strangling yourself, you're not, make sure you can breathe. But the weight is going to go gently down, and then you're going to start to lift the chin up. So depending on the tightness of your body, you should start to feel that stretch through the side of your neck right away. So as you do that again, you want to be mindful of your shoulders and making sure that the shoulders aren't reaching up toward the ears. Let those soften down. And then lifting the gaze upward, only go as high as you can still breathe. So you want to make sure that there's still breath flow. And I like to take some side-to-side movement here, really starting to get into some of those deeper muscles along the front of my neck and throat. You can let the teeth open, so not clenching the jaw. Again, no right or wrong. Really just checking in with how this feels. And then when you feel complete, you could bring the head back to center and again roll out the shoulders. The next thing is really easy. So you're just going to take some rolls here through the neck. I like to go half circles one direction a few times. And then I also like to play with going side to side a few times. I have a lot of stiffness on the right side of my neck this morning, so I'm not going quite as far as maybe the range of motion I would have. Could even probably see my shoulders starting to try to help that tension. That's normal. We try to counterbalance any discomfort or sensation in the body. So just be aware of that. Maybe inviting the shoulders to rest as much as they can. And then it is fine to take half circles upward as long as you can still breathe here. So if there's a lot of tension in the back of your neck, a lot of contraction, it may not feel good to take half circles looking up. You want to make sure that the breath can flow at all times here. And again, keeping the spine nice and long, still sitting up nice and tall. If this is feeling okay and you want to move into full circles, it is fine to play with that. Just make sure that you can still breathe. And make sure that you kind of explore the range of motion without feeling like there's tension or contraction in the neck. So if there's a lot of crunching or discomfort in the back of your neck, you just want to make sure that you give yourself enough space, enough time to rotate all the way around here. It's even a little hard to talk doing that. All right, and then roll out the shoulders. Maybe take a few deeper breaths, letting all of that go. And then I want to shift the focus into the shoulders. So there's a few different ways. I've just been rolling the shoulders with my hands resting in the lap. Another great way would be to take the hands up to the shoulders and then start to let the arms rotate all the way around. This is one of my favorite variations because it starts to let the rib cage and the side body begin to open up. Since I am a side sleeper, I have a lot of contraction and compacted sensation in the morning through my side body. But if you think about if you're on a computer all day, if the shoulders are reaching forward, if you're sitting back in a chair, there's still a tendency for the shoulders to roll forward. So taking this movement with the arms up gives a little bit of lift here for the rib cage, for the lungs, and then also for the diaphragm. So if you're practicing with me, you can take a few of these. This video is more or less just a demonstration. I'm going to leave this up on my Facebook and feel free to share it. Offering this just a time for you to have some different tools and techniques that you can use while you're sitting at your desk or first thing in the morning. So be sure to go both directions. Another variation could be take the arms out to the side. I didn't give myself enough room on this side, so I'm just going to demonstrate with one arm. So you could take these large or small. So maybe only taking some micro movement first to notice how this feels works best for you. You could play with your full range of motion, bringing the arm all the way up and around. And then again, be sure to go in both directions. Another variation would be just taking these kind of as a micro movement, shoulder height, or a little further down. So it's fine to play with what that feels like. You probably don't want to take these any higher. This starts to engage some of the deeper muscles through the shoulder girdle that can actually start to compact through the neck, especially if there's a lot of tightness. So that did not feel good to me today. So the idea is just to feel good in these gentle movements and feel good in your body. Any variation of shoulder rolls are always a great idea. All right, so the next one I want to offer for the shoulders to open all of this up. especially if you're using a computer or on your phone where there's a tendency to round through the shoulders. If you're sitting in a chair, you could play with maybe holding behind the chair or even just reaching the arms behind you. So there's going to be a little bit of elevation. I'm going to turn sideways so that you can see this view through my spine. So if you're reaching the arms behind you or even holding on to something, you're going to play with lifting the heart open. So you can see there's a little bit of lift here, a little bit of curve in the spine. And then just take a few breaths here. Small movement doesn't have to be anything hard or anything really elaborate. These gentle movements are a great way just to start to open all of this up. And then you may want to bring the arms up here, holding opposite elbows. You could take some breath in or holding wrists. Reaching up and over to one side. And then inhaling, come up. And then lengthening here, reaching up and over to the second side. And then inhaling up. Maybe reaching the arms back behind you again. So either holding on to the chair, just reaching the arms out. And take a few deep breaths. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. Check in. And then let that go. Roll it out. So anytime you're doing these gentle movements, it always feels good, at least in my body, to kind of take some neutralizing movement as you roll through the shoulders. So this just invites the body to kind of reset, noticing what movements you've done, and then also noticing what engagement muscles have happened. So just take a moment to check in. Again, those of you just joining, this is kind of just a simple guide with some movements that you can do to open up the neck and the shoulders, also through the spine, so upper back, low back, and then hips. So the next variation, if you're seated, is to take a gentle twist. So again, sitting up nice and tall, you could play with inhaling the arms up, and then as you exhale, looking over the shoulders. If you're using a chair, you could rest the arm on the back of your chair. You could also take it down to your side. And then I like to take the opposite arm across my leg or to the knee. You could also play with holding the side of the chair if that works for your body. So you're not necessarily needing to push yourself into the twist. You're just letting this movement kind of happen with your breath. Soften the shoulders and your jaw. Again, maybe invite the length of your spine, sitting up nice and tall. And a few breaths here, 3 or 4. And then exhale, release back to center. And then you can take a deep breath in. And then exhale, open to the left. Again, take a few deep breaths. Maybe just noticing how this feels. And then exhale back to center. You might want to take some side to side. I also like to play with a little bit of rolling movement here. So this just starts to open up. Again, through the rib cage, through the side body. And then it taps into the mobility of your spine, the range of motion. So you could go a couple rounds a few ways, going one way and then the other way a few times. And then when you're ready, come back to center. So the other thing I want to mention just very quickly is obviously all of these things can be done in your chair. These could also be done standing up. So if there's a lot of compaction in the low back, a lot of tension, the best thing is going to be just to stand up. Maybe take some stretches, reach the arms up, take some side to side, maybe walk around the chair if you can. Obviously, if your job does not allow you to take a moment to stand up or to walk around or to do your work standing, these are just different tools, different techniques that you can use to start to open up through the spine and through the neck and through the shoulders. All of these areas that really work a lot harder when we're sitting and trying to do our own work. So the next thing I want to show you is a little more specific for the low back and then also for the hips as well. So if you're sitting in a chair, and if this is accessible to you, I want to show you two different variations because I find that we all have unique bodies, right? We all have different ranges of motion. We all have different abilities in terms of mobility and movement. So the first variation I want to show you is just to lengthen out your leg. I hope that you can see that I stretched my leg out. I'm not sure. So you're going to take the opposite leg below the knee. So you're thinking about making a figure four, and then you want to flex your foot. So if it's your right leg, you're going to flex the right foot. If you're not sure what that means, you're just going to draw the toes back toward the knee. So maybe this feels like enough for you. You might already start to feel a stretch through the side of the leg here, through the hip. You could play with holding onto the chair and then maybe just reaching the heart forward. That will start to stretch through the hip extender, through the outside of the hip. Another option, if you have the range of motion and you want a little bit more, with the knees bent, you could just take the right ankle over the top of the left thigh. So again, this might feel like enough for you. Keeping the foot flexed is important here. It protects your knee and then also starts to engage the outer hip extender. Hang out here, take a few breaths, maybe play with some shoulder stuff. If you wanted a little more, you could start to play with reaching the heart forward. And then breathe. Let your jaw relax. So even just spending a few breaths here, you can start to feel this opening up. If you wanted to take a twist here, you could play with opening to the left. And then maybe opening to the right. That gets a little more into the hip flexor, into the front hip muscle, and that connective joint there that connects through the pelvis. Or maybe it just feels best to stay center, and that's fine too. And then when you're finished, you can release the leg, maybe stretch it out. I even like to just let my knees rock side to side here. So neutralizing is important to me as a practitioner, as a teacher, because it allows the body to start to integrate some of those movements. So we're in this for longevity, for sustainability over time, right? We're not in this for short and fast or quick and hard. We're in this for the long run to help the body feel good in the long run over time. And so these gentle neutralizing movements are a big part of finding that sustainability, finding that longevity for feeling good in your body over time, even if you have to sit and work at a desk. So you want to make sure that you always do the second side. Again, any variation, so with the ankle on top of the knee or with the leg lengthened out and the ankle below the knee. And then from here you could play with shifting the weight forward or going side to side for a few breaths. Noticing how this feels. And then again, maybe reaching the heart forward. And let the jaw relax. Coming back to those foundational things, right? Softening the jaw, softening the space between the eyebrows. and then you could come up when you're ready and release, and again, take some neutralizing movement. So twists are really great to start to open up the spine, especially in the low back. So any type of twisting movement, you could play with taking one arm out in front, and then the other, and maybe reaching up and over. Give yourself permission to kind of just play with movement here if you're sitting in a chair. And then there's one more variation I want to show you that really lengthens all of the spine. So this one is not done seated, although you could play with folding forward, letting the weight start to shift, maybe even holding the back of the chair, so kind of a variation of folding forward here. But the variation I want to show you is actually a variation of downward facing dog, which is probably the most common yoga pose that anyone has seen. But this variation will be done with a chair. So if you're sitting in a chair and you have a minute and you have the space to stand up, stand up. This will always feel a lot better for your spine. All right, so the variation I want to show you of downward dog using a chair is actually using the back of the chair. So you want to make sure that you have enough space behind you, because if you think about downward dog, you're elongating the spine here. And then holding the back of your chair, make sure that the chair feels nice and sturdy. So if it has wheels, maybe find the side of your couch or find a kitchen chair, something that's a little more sturdy that isn't actually just gonna roll underneath you. You want a little bit of gravity, a little bit of pull there with the hands. So the hands are going to be about shoulder width apart, if they can be. If the chair is more narrow like mine and they can't be shoulder width apart, that's fine too. Just give yourself as much space as you can. And then pressing into the chair, you're going to start to walk the legs back. I need to scoot over a little. Small spaces. Okay, so then from here you're going to walk the feet back, and then you're just going to start to press the heart down. So lengthening through the spine. This could also be done at the wall. This is one of my favorite stretches, especially if I've been sitting a lot. And then you could take some movement here. You could keep the knees bent. So if there's a lot of tightness, a lot of tension in the hamstrings, it may feel better to keep a micro bend here. We're just thinking about lengthening through the spine. Take a few breaths, maybe take some movement for the head or neck. You could wag your tail or rock the weight side to side here. If you're feeling balanced and sturdy, you could play with lifting one arm out, maybe taking some rotations for the shoulders. And then make sure whatever you do on one side, that you do something similar on the other side. So honoring that one side may feel different than the other, and that's fine. Let's take a few breaths here. Whether the hands are on a wall, or the side of the couch, or a chair, or a table, countertop. Giving a little bit of action, pressing the hands down, and then shifting the weight back. Oh, I could have stayed there a little longer. It feels so good for the spine. All right, and then you can find your seat again. Maybe roll out the shoulders. And take a few breaths. So there are lots of different ways that you can find movement to start to open up the neck and the shoulders, excuse me, the upper back, through the mid back, and through the low back and hips, even just, excuse me, even just in a chair. So I invite you to explore any of these movements that might start to open these places up for you. And again, I just want to end with saying that the most important thing for your spine will be just to stand up, to take a walk around the house or around the block. Just take a moment to let the spine lengthen, giving yourself enough space and enough time in the low back. But of course, all of these things could be done if you don't have the time or if you're swamped at work. Taking these gentle movements that I've offered in this video this morning will really start to help to open up and expand through these areas that get compacted as we sit. So I hope this felt helpful for you. I just want to say thank you for watching. I will put this up so it will be on replay. You can go back and watch it if you want. Feel free to share. Friends who are working from home or sitting a lot at a desk, feel free to share this with them, and feel free to come back to this anytime you need. So thanks for watching, and I hope you each have a wonderful day.